Hi. Yes. Okay. You? You? Okay.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to EFA's 2023 International Conference. I am Paul Thompson, the Technical Director for EFAA. To get us rolling today, I just want to introduce to you Salvador Marin. Salvador Marin is the EFA President and has been for the last 4 years. He hails from Spain and he has quite an illustrious career, keeps himself very busy with venture capital, with work as a member on EFRAG's Sustainability Reporting Board, his role as managing partner of a boutique accounting practice, and many more. So Salvador, please, if you would come and get us started.
Thank you, Paul. Welcome, everybody. Thank you, Paula, for hosting this the 2023 IFA International Conference in the hometown of OCC. And since IFA was founded almost 30 years ago, in 1994, OCC has been one of our strongest and loyal members. Thank you for that. We are continuing to have you part of the IFA family, and family that is growing step by step. And thank you for your support and your stability and your staff and your personal members and for your always strong activities. You have the floor, please.
Good morning. Welcome to Portugal. Welcome to Lisbon. Welcome to OCC. This is the house of the accountants in Portugal. So, welcome. It is great to give you the welcome on the behalf of OCC and this F International Conference in 2023, the future of small and medium-sized enterprise, SMEs and improvising talent is an emerging topic of great interest to all the accountants in the world and the society. I will speak half in Portuguese, half in English because we have English members, the EFA English members with the language official of EFA, and we have the Portuguese one that are seeing us too. It is to me an honor to have you here. To our speakers that will provide us a good conference, welcome, and thank you for being here in Portugal. Now I will speak in Portuguese. Bom dia, bem-vindos.
Welcome and good morning and welcome to our Order of Chartered Accountants, the House of Accountants. In this auditorium, we do a lot of training and preparation of our accountants in Portugal, which is extremely important for what is the basis and the grounds of our profession. The theme today of our conference talks about the future of SMPs and SMEs to retain and upskill and talents.
Who is the president of EFAC, and it's her first time in Lisbon, not in Lisbon, but here in OCC, in Lisbon. So it was a pleasure to have you here. Asma é a atual presidente
Asma is the present president of EFAA. It's an honor to welcome her here at this conference organized by the family of EFAA, who I salute in the person of Salvador Marin. And it's a big pleasure for Portugal to associate to this organization, both as a member of EFAC and member of EFA from its onset. EFA has a huge importance for us in defending SMEs in the European Union countries, in studying and the reflections we conduct within this scope that has contributed a lot to the growth of professionals in the European area, and what allows us to influence and to create different conditions to go the future in a better condition. It's a privilege.
Há uns anos atrás, ainda como uma área cinzenta, pesada, de rotinas, e transformá-la para atrair os jovens e a nova realidade hoje que os jovens têm na sua forma de encarar o mundo do trabalho, o mundo dos desafios, e por isso todos nós que temos que nos adaptar às novas realidades. Sofremos todos a nível mundial de uma dificuldade enorme de retenção de talentos nesta área, e é um problema que nos abrange a todos. E como ultrapassar, como encarar e como perspectivar o futuro para que estes assuntos
so that these matters will be solved and that we may attract into these areas young people who have nowadays a totally different view on how to work, on how they settle. We talk about retention when it is the last word young people want to hear. Retention is, or retaining is a word that scares them, that limits their horizons. And how are we going to share this information and this world of ours of accounting, a world that attracts us so us, which is so motivating for us, and that we feel is not being motivating for the new generations. Of course, this is a matter that will be discussed here throughout the day, and I'm sure from here we will leave with very important reflections on what is the possibility for us to change the future and to have a more robust profession, and above all with young people choosing to join this profession. It's us, the generations that have gone through this life, that need to adapt probably, and not the opposite. And this is very difficult on what is the image each one of us has of this profession, about the responsibility and the confidence that this profession has. And this is the key, the master key for the future, confidence and retention or retaining, and of course the will of young people to become part of this world and not ending up staying long or affected to their tasks, and the companies not to put on the company's hats. And this confidence and mobility, well, all of this, we need to adapt to this new reality. How are we going to do it? How are we going to change the paradigm? This is something we'll be reflecting upon today, throughout the day, and I hope we'll leave with a good reflection with the fantastic speakers we have today with us and with the organization of an entity such as EFA. And above all, with the presence of EFAC, I am certain that we will leave here today more reinforced and with ideas to change and to upskill these talents. I think that we also need to reflect about something which is important. Upskilling talents is not to mold them to what we have as a picture, but to realize how we're going to manage to find the right bridge to join what were the generations, the previous generations that created the past of the generations, and the ones that will build the future of our profession. So please be all very welcome to Portugal. I hope you are enjoying it, that you are being welcomed. And this profession of ours in Portugal is, it has 68,000 members, and we have lots and lots of accountants that are very committed with very high ethic standards and very committed. And this organization strives to keep these principles, these ethical principles of highly qualified professionals, dedicated, that translate this trust, which is so necessary in the entrepreneurial world in each of our countries. Welcome once more and have a good conference.
Good morning again. Thank you so much, Paula, for your excellent speech, and thank you so much for your help to our profession. Continue with the opening remarks. Of course, thanks to all the other EFA delegates who are attending this event. Every year we have more and more attendees, and many thanks to the speakers and moderators, and of course to the EFA and OCC staff who have prepared the organization of this event. Thank you so much, our board members, EFA board members, for your help to prepare this event too. If you remember, in our member convention in Brussels last December, we heard that talent was one of the greatest challenges facing the profession in their jurisdiction. That is why today's event is focused on how to make the accountancy profession more attractive and how our small and medium-sized accountancy practice can best attract, retain, and skilled talent and continue to assist the economic transition for our small and medium-sized enterprise and our small and medium-sized practitioners. The accountancy profession is navigating challenging times. Perhaps the most challenging is in my long career. I don't remember I don't remember another other state with this stressful activity. No, the regulatory framework is becoming increasingly complex and stringent, and business and social chain demand that accountants offer new services. It is therefore essential that the profession enrich its talent pool. A combination of reskilling and retaining good people and attracting new talent are vital to the growth and prosperity of our profession. This is our idea. No, we need to acquire the new skills needed to provide non-traditional services such as advice, reporting, and sustainability assurance, and to lead multidisciplinary teams. Professional accountancy organizations play a key role in helping small and medium-sized practitioners to reskill their people and attract new talent by providing information, ideas, and insights, but also by promoting the key role the accountancy profession plays to the well-being of society in general. No, this is our point. No, for example, from EFA, as umbrella organization, we are spending our time and resources disseminate this position to regulator and other stakeholders. I am spending my time and our staff all time with this way. No, as we understand, it is our responsibility, and this will help the new generation of small and medium-sized practitioners as their key SMEs customers. A few personal reflection on the conference theme. Our profession is strongly to remain attractive to young talented people. No, we might have an imagined problem that we need to face. We are also struggling to retain talent, and we are struggling to ensure our people have the right skill fit for a new and evolving role as trusted advisor to SMEs, as the provider of sustainability services, using the talent technologies and things like that. No, but we are facing this challenge. I am confident, very confident, that we will succeed, and our profession as small and medium-sized practitioners will come through stronger, smarter, and sustainable. This is my point. I am a little bit optimistic with this position. No? Today's program completes 3 sessions. The first session says the extent by examining trends in the labor market, economy, and society, including some personal reflection on the global challenges facing the profession. I think it will be a very good introduction, no, in the panel 1. The second session of the panel 2 look at the role of the professional accounting organization in helping their small and medium-sized participating members attract, retain, and skilled talent. And the third final session examines how small and medium-sized practitioners can best attract, retain, and again, a skilled talent. No, I am looking forward to the interactive session where a speaker and delegate can share insights, information, and ideas. This is the objective with this event, no? To try to do networking and to share our insights and our ideas. No, I hope that we will all be more the wiser by the end of the today. Okay. Thank you so much for spend your time with EFA family today. And now I would like to invite Asma Rimouski. Asma Rimouski, as Paula has said, is the president of IFAD. She will deliver a keynote address. Asma became president of IFAD in November 2022. Asma has a very large background in the profession. No? He's an excellent professional. If you read your CV, you can spend a lot of time reading your special CV. Thank you so much for attending with us. Asma is the first IFA president from North Africa. For Africa, okay. No North, for Africa, full Africa. I had the privilege of meeting Asma at the IFA CEO Chief Executive Forum, which also focused on talent early this year. For IFA, Asma, it is a luxury and a pleasure to have with us. We appreciate very much your effort to be here today with us, with the IFA family, with the OCC family too. And we are proud on your recognition. Thank you, Asma. You have the floor.
Well, hello, everyone. Obrigado, obrigada.
Thank you. Thank
It
you.
stops there.
Lipar por aqui.
Before I get started on our business, please allow me to share with you some deep inner feelings that I'm going through right now. So standing in front of you as IFAC president gives me a special personal feeling and a sense of vulnerability that I would like to share. As I was chatting to Salvador yesterday during our wonderful dinner, he said something that really did ring a bell to me. He said, Asma, would you have thought, going 30 years back, that we would be so blessed to be among such a diverse pool of highly respected professionals from all over the world? And I can only agree with you, Salvador. And I will add to that something that defines me specifically, because I always like to establish a connection with my audience. As an African, as an Arab, and as a Muslim woman, I have grown up with a complex of inferiority towards the Western world, Europe, for example. So I'm telling you, sometimes I feel like I'm in a dream. But of course, you know that dreams can have exciting moments, like today, but also some very daunting moments. But right now, I feel like I'm in a beautiful dream, and I feel so humbled standing in front of you. So thank you again for inviting me and giving me this opportunity to meet you. Thank you again, Aoife and Salvador, for inviting me to speak. And thank you, Paula and OCC, for your gracious welcoming. I'm sure you're all familiar with IFAC, so I will skip all the formalities and get right to the substance of our discussion. Attracting, retaining, and upskilling talent is a major theme of IFAC's agenda this year. And as Paula and Salvador said, it was the focus of our 23 Chief Executive Forum, where we heard from various stakeholders and experts. There was a clear consensus on one point, is that there is no one-size-fits-all approach to attractiveness and retention, not at the global level and not even at the regional level. This is a complex subject that calls for local action based on local circumstances. And that might sound like bad news coming from myself as a representative of a global organization like IFAC. But the good news is that there are always areas is the expansion of our profession to include intermediate qualifications. 2 is the central role of continuously adapting the accountancy curriculum. And 3, our appeal to young people who look for purpose. So I'll start with the first one, the expansion of our profession through intermediate qualifications. Our profession is sometimes described as top-heavy. We have a large number of people at the highest level of qualification and relatively few at intermediate levels. Accounting technicians are a vitally important part of the solution, and SMEs are a good reason why. Accounting technicians offer an interesting value proposition to SMEs, especially those whose needs might not always call for the highest level of expertise. The accounting technician qualification and similar intermediate qualifications are also very important paths into our profession for non-graduates and individuals who would not normally pursue an accountancy qualification. And this is a fundamental matter for the sustainable growth of our profession, especially in countries with relatively few university-level educational opportunities. We have an opportunity with intermediate qualifications to bring in many young people that we would miss otherwise. And it is important to emphasize that an intermediate qualification is not a ceiling. For many professionals, it is a first part of a journey towards higher qualification. Another issue that we need to keep working on is that some of us still view accounting technicians primarily as the competition. And this is not IFAC's view, and it is not my view. As mid-tier professionals, accounting technicians complement the work of senior accountants. And there is no lack of opportunities, as we know. IFAC's work on accounting technicians has started several years ago. We have, in some cases, worked directly with PAOs to develop an accounting technician qualification. More generally, we are engaging with our members and our stakeholders around the issue wherever we can and whenever we can. So I encourage you all to visit our IFAC website to find a new document called The Role Accounting Technicians Can Play in the Global Accountancy Ecosystem, which has many more details than I can cover today. The second theme is accountancy education. The profession's global efforts need input from around the world to account for the complexity of the education ecosystem. We have a single set of education standards for the foundational skills and competencies of every professional accountant and aspiring accountant. But different jurisdictions naturally have systems that build on this foundation for accrediting requirements, plus different oversight structures for education. And this ecosystem calls for PAOs to collaborate with academics, other PAOs, and employers to build on each other's work. There is only so much IFAC can do on its own because we are a small organization. And much of our strength comes from our unique position as the global convener of the profession. So let me give you an example of our convening role. In 2022, we began a series of conversations with our members in the MENA region to understand some of the barriers to adopting new and revised education standards in their countries. And what came up was the alignment of university curricula with the subjects covered in qualification exams. And this led IFAC, in partnership with the World Bank, to sponsor a regional conference for accountancy education stakeholders earlier this year, which highlighted initiatives in the region, views from other regions that are working through similar challenges. So here I want to emphasize the importance of coordination with educational institutions. We need to ensure not only that the curriculum matches the qualification exams, but also that an education in accounting is engaging and attractive. We want students to understand that accounting, as the language of business, can take them anywhere they want. For example, in sustainability, they can learn how to measure a company's carbon offsets by learning data analytical skills. They can also learn how to ensure that the data used to measure workplace diversity is appropriate by leveraging on their natural skepticism, etc., etc. And this brings me to the last and third theme, which is our purpose-driven profession. Our public interest mandate is one of our greatest strengths for attracting and retaining talented people. We have a purpose, and a great purpose, but we need to shout it more. We need to advocate for it more. And before I go on, I would like to underline something. I personally hesitate to generalize about an entire generation of young people. They do not have just one way of seeing the world or thinking about their careers. When we talk to them, we hear different things. Some want to work differently. Some are looking for purpose. Others are looking for a better work-life balance. Others in less developed countries are struggling to find a job even though they are well trained. So I would like to turn quickly to the results of a global survey of youngsters commissioned by IFAC and the ACCA in 2021. And I know that my colleague from ACCA will cover it in more detail. It is called Groundbreakers, Generation Z and the Future of Accountancy. What we found is that Generation Z sees the profession as an attractive career that provides long-term prospects and mobility across sectors and around the world. But we also found low awareness of the broader contribution accountants can make to the public interest. Only a minority of respondents think that accountants working in business play a leading role in reporting on sustainability issues or in ensuring the ethical governance of business. So this puts our profession's work on sustainability in a different perspective. We know the public interest role of our profession in sustainable development. But do we know how to communicate it to the next generation? Do we do it enough? And I want to highlight a new initiative from IFAC's International Panel on Accountancy Education, which is called Can You See Yourself? And it's a series of articles on the IFAC Knowledge Gateway. Each article takes on a specific sustainability-related role in our profession. And the first article, for example, is a fictionalized account of a day in the life of a sustainability reporting senior manager. So I encourage you all to look at that. It's very interesting. And the goal of this series is to help aspiring accountants as well as current accountants to really see themselves in these emerging roles. We want them to see themselves using the traditional evergreen skills and expertise of a professional accountant to do new and exciting work on the front lines of sustainable development. And I think this series is really a very engaging way to do that. The International Education Panel is also working on a few more articles in the series, and they may soon open up for submissions from real accountants telling their own stories. So stay tuned. They will be hearing from some of you soon. Now I want to put this discussion of purpose back into context. Because remember, we do much more than sustainability work. We are leaders in the fight against corruption and money laundering. We safeguard public funds through our exceptionally important role in public financial management. We are a natural fit in countless ways for people looking for purpose in their careers. But we need to spread the word about our work. So I hope I have not been too long. I will stop here. I want to commend again EFAA and each member for taking on these issues and advancing our profession in the public interest. And please enjoy today's conference. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Asma. Thank you so much, Alma, for sharing global perspective for your excellent speech. I had taken into account your specific advice for us, for our profession. I am sure that we will continue in this way, working together. Thank you so much. If you want, you can a special gift for her.
Absolutely. So, Asma, can we please, on behalf of EFAA, give you a gift? This is especially from Brussels, Belgium. So
Paola.
And Paola too. And again.
Thank you again. It is now time to commence the first session. I would like to ask Adriana Bunjaku is good pronunciation, Bunjaku, Mai Safil, very wise to come to the stage and take their seat, please. The introduction is for Paul Thompson. Thank you so much. We must go.
Okay, welcome to session one, which will be moderated by Ardiana. I'd just like to say just a couple of brief words about Ardiana, our moderator for this session. Ardiana is the Executive Director of SCARC, which is the member organization of EFAA from Kosovo. SCARC is a very small professional accountancy organization, but thanks to Ardiana, SCARC punches well above its weight. It's a very small organization, but with her vision and her passion and drive, she's helped project the organization so that it's one of the leading organizations in Europe. Ardiana also has quite a track record with the International Federation of Accountants too. She has served 2 full terms, I understand, on the Professional Accountancy Organization Development Committee, and she's also served as 1 term on IFAC's Compliance Advisory Panel. So Ardiana, let me hand over to you, session 1. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you, Paul, for the introduction. Good morning, bon dia, and mirëmëngjesi, it's an Albanian. Good morning. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests and fellow professionals, I stand before you today not just as a moderator, but as someone who is passionate about the subject that we are going to discuss today, trends in the labor market, economy, and society. It is an honor for me to guide our discussion and delve into this vital topic that holds immense significance for each and every one of us. In our fast-paced and ever-changing world, where technological advancements and global shifts are reshaping our society, it is becoming necessary for all of us as accountants to remain informed and adaptable to the trends impacting our profession. We are witnessing significant transformations in both the nature of our work as a professional accountants and the contributions that we make to our organizations. In order to properly and continuously respond to market demands and needs, we must regularly communicate, not just with our members, but also with the key stakeholders and other social groups as well. Professional accountant skill set will likely grow to be multidisciplinary and include data analysis, effective communication, relationship building and management, creative and critical thinking, and tech savviness, amongst others. As organizations concentrate on cultivating and retaining key talents, the training for professional accountants must equip them for a business career and prioritize the skills necessary to attract new generations into our profession. To achieve this, we must address the aspirations and priorities to the Generation Z, and we should be ready also for Generation Alpha, that is still to come. So, what steps can we take in order to pique the interest of this generation in our profession? This generation, being the first to grow up in a technologically interconnected world, is naturally drawn to careers that embrace innovation and provide opportunities to leverage technology. They also see careers that align with their values and contribute to making a positive impact on society, all the while placing great value on work-life balance and flexibility in their careers, and also emphasizing the significance of mental and physical well-being. Therefore, in this session, we have the unique opportunity to delve into these trends and explore their implications for accountants in the labor market, economy, and society. Through our discussion, let us gain the valuable insights, share our best practice, not just from the panelists, but also we would like to hear a best practice that you have as an audience. And without further ado, I would like to introduce my esteemed colleagues and panelists who are here with me today and ready to share their invaluable experience and insights. With me today is Barry Wammes, Chief Executive Officer of MBA Netherlands, experienced manager with a demonstrated history of working in the accounting industry since 2003. And Mike Suffold, Director of ACCA's Professional Insights. Mike leads a team of technical and policy experts producing insight on the most pressing issues impacting the business environment. So let's start with Mike. Thank you.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's a real pleasure to be here at the EFAA International Conference and to be talking to you today. And to be kicking off this first discussion addressing the conference's really important theme about the future of small practices, attracting, retaining and upskilling talent. As Ariana said in her introduction, my name is Mike Suffield. I lead the Policy and Insights team at ACCA. The team's made up of a wide range of subject matter experts, and we conduct research and policy work with the aim of providing insights, advice and support to our members, to ACCA's members, but also more broadly contributing to the important debates concerning the future of the accountancy profession and how we and our members can continue to make a crucial contribution to the organisations that we all work in. And in terms of issues facing the profession, I think there's possibly nothing more important than the challenge of continuing to make the profession attractive to those joining the world of work. So today I'm going to draw upon some of our recent research to talk to you about some of the trends that we see and to start to tease out what that means for professional accountancy organisations and indeed for small and medium accounting practices supporting their clients. So I'm going to start by looking at how things are changing. And just over a year ago, ACCA published a report which we called Professional Accountants at the Heart of Sustainable Organisations. And it was really a consolidation of a lot of research that we've carried out over a period of time, looking at the drivers of change impacting the role of the profession and the role of accountants in the future. And you can see from this slide that we identified 5 key drivers of change. And I think none of them will probably come as a great surprise to you. So we identified the global economy, which is continuing to transition, the environment and the challenge of climate change and sustainability, linked to this, shifting societal expectations and the stakeholder society, the rapid technological transformation that we're all experiencing and the very rapid emergence of AI, and then lastly, transformed working patterns and careers. And all of these are happening in different ways, at different paces, in different places, and they're all interacting as well. Some of them, like economy, society and workforce, speak directly to the issues that we're going to be discussing today. So all of these things taken together are really changing and shaping our future, and I think it's really important to start with that as a kind of an overarching context. And that means that the priorities for the profession are continuing to evolve too. So following on from that research that I talked about, at ACCA we then initiated a global campaign which we called Accounting for a Better World. And this was really looking at the future priorities for the profession and how the profession can help shape a better world, and really the role of the professional accountant in all of that. And in the context of this short presentation, I'm just going to focus on a couple of these. First of all, you can see number 2 on the list is critical, developing the talent for tomorrow. So attracting young talent into the profession is crucial, and I'll talk shortly about some more research that ACCA's carried out about talent in the profession and how younger professionals are feeling right now. And then I'd probably also highlight number 6 there, supporting entrepreneurial growth. So this is particularly important given the challenges we're seeing in the global economy right now, but also relevant for small and medium-sized practices as they seek to expand the service offering to small businesses and build on the traditional accountancy services that have been offered over the longer term. I think it's important to reflect also about how the world of work itself across the profession is changing and how the needs of employers are transforming too. Where we work, how we work, when we work, and how that work is evolving. The speed of change of work in the workplace really is profound. And we're seeing that so much in the research that we carry out at the moment, whether this is changing patterns of work, the rise of hybrid and remote working, the growing application of technology at work, employability challenges, shifting career pathways, the reality of 5 generations now in the workforce, and Gen Z bringing their own ideas and aspirations to the profession. I think these longer term trends will inevitably shape our future workplace. But what about right now? What trends are we currently seeing shaping the more immediate future? It probably makes sense, I think, to start with the quite extraordinary developments that we've seen in the global economy over the last 12 to 18 months. So every quarter, ACCA, along with our research partner IMA, we publish a global economic conditions survey. And this is the largest survey of professional accountants in the world, focusing specifically on the global economy. Amongst many things, our survey actually tracks sentiment around issues such as confidence in the future, as well as looking at specific things impacting businesses such as capital expenditure, customer orders, and employment. And as you can see on this slide, which sets out the trend over a long period of time, sentiment just recently is just starting to pick up. And I think it's probably true to say that the global economy entered 2023 with a bit more momentum than many had expected. Confidence has risen a little as businesses come to terms with the fallout from the Russian-Ukraine war. The economic climate has also been helped, we think, by a faster than expected relaxation of China's zero COVID policies and some more normal energy prices in Europe that could help to reduce headline inflation. But on the other side, we still see monetary policy further tightening over the recent past, and there are a lot of downside risks still, I think we'd recognise, to the global economy as we move through 2023. With that as context, I'm going to turn my attention now more specifically to focusing on what's happening with talent across the accountancy profession. So earlier this year, ACCA launched our inaugural research report, which we call Global Talent Trends. So we think this is the largest survey on talent across the accountancy profession, and we had 8,500 professional accountants who participated. And within that sample too, we had over 500 SMPs respond, so we got some good insight and some good results from that too. It's actually a piece of work that we intend to publish every year, which will look to track key trends in the future of work and workplace sentiments across the profession. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run us through some of the key findings from the research, because I do think it gives some interesting reflections and some evidence around how people working in the profession are feeling right now about their working lives and about their careers. And you can see the overall headlines on the slide here. I'm not going to touch on all of them, but I will focus on those that you see highlighted in the red boxes, just to give a bit more of a focus. First of all, I'm going to start by touching on working patterns across the profession, and particularly the opportunities and the challenges that are presented by hybrid working. It's probably the most obvious thing I think people think about when we talk about new ways of working and the future of work at the moment. I think perhaps the most surprising statistic from our whole survey was the pie chart circle that you can just see on the left-hand side there. So most respondents to our survey said that they are now working full-time back in the office. Just over 1/3 suggested that they were working under some sort of hybrid arrangements, partly in the office, partly at home. And the minority said that they were fully remote, still based at home. And you can see the S&P comparative statistic here with 62% of respondents saying they were working back in the office full-time. Then, as you can see on the right-hand side of this slide, we've cut this data by generation. And you can see actually some really interesting differences. So younger people, much more likely to say that they're in the office full-time. Older people, more likely to say they're working under hybrid working arrangements. And then at the bottom of the slide, you can see that we also cut it by different countries. And there's some really interesting and significant differences here. So in developed economies such as Canada or the UK or Ireland, hybrid working still predominates. But in developing economies, it's really more the opposite. And some of that could be a reflection around different countries or regions being at different stages of development, differences in technological infrastructure in markets, for example. And it'd be interesting to get reflections on people in the room on that. And we then started to get into the heart of what remote working and hybrid working actually feels like. It's very obvious through the survey that we carried out that respondents felt there were some real upsides to this, but as well some challenges with hybrid working, and particularly working remotely. So running from left to right, you'll see there's a general sense that remote working is helping people feel more productive in the workplace, but also some challenges when it comes to collaboration, team engagement, and manager relationships. We also spent some time talking to organisations about how they're managing this, and questions around productivity. How do you continue to drive collaboration? How do you build a culture? The idea is that hybrid work somehow shifted the power balance between the employer and the employee. Implications for bringing new staff into the organisation. How does that work? What does it mean for younger people in the organisation? How do people learn in the workplace in this environment? And can remote working lead to an imbalance in particular skills? Are people missing out on building those critical face-to-face interpersonal skills? And then a lot to do with well-being and remote work too. So lots of stuff to really think about there. And it's been quite interesting to see what organisations are doing in this space. So we know that Amazon, for example, has announced that all its office staff have to be in the office for a minimum of 3 days a week. We've seen Disney and Starbucks making some similar pronouncements in the last few months. It's a huge debate, I think, at the moment, with both employers and employees, trying to find a way around this and understand what's best for their business and for their people. At ACCA, for our part, we're being very open in allowing our staff to follow the working pattern that works best for them and best for the business. So there have not been any requirements to be in the office for a certain given amount of time. But we do know that as a member organisation, our members value a lot of face-to-face contact and interaction. So we're trying to work our way through that. And undoubtedly, this is particularly challenging too for smaller businesses. I want to move on to another key issue, and this is something that came out quite strongly, which is what we describe as a challenge of burnout and stress facing employees across the profession today. So we had some pretty clear indicators in our data here around the mental health challenge facing employees and the desire for more support around mental health. And you can see across every indicator here the challenges felt by employees as well as the responses needed by employers to help to try and address these issues. And you can see here as well how the data compared for our SNP respondents to the survey. So generally, SNP respondents scored slightly better compared to our overall results, but still some issues I think there to be concerned about. And we talk again about Generation Z, and it was really perhaps most concerning that it was this generation that was really feeling the strain. So across every indicator here, younger people were more likely to express concerns around their mental health and demand for support from their employers versus their older colleagues. And part of the challenge here, I think, is around perception of the stress associated with roles across accountancy. So you could argue this is the same for many professions, but as a profession we are competing for talent. People may go into other vocations. There's a lot of optionality for young people in deciding what they're going to do. So how can we help address some of these both reality issues but perception issues about what it's like working in the accountancy profession? And just building on that to link through to the issue of technology, which we all talk about a great deal. Again, you can see here some indicators that respondents would like more support with technology, and also a significant number of respondents really still concerned about the pace of technology change. And really interestingly here, I think, it was younger people who were most concerned about this. So you might ask, well, why the so-called digital natives, the ones most likely to suggest that they've got concerns about the pace of technology change. And we tested this with organisations, we discussed this. And it came as less of a surprise to them, actually, and there were a few different observations coming out of those discussions. First of all, younger people may be more likely to be in operational roles that are more directly impacted by technology change. They may just have a better understanding of the impacts that technology is going to have. And older respondents, maybe in more strategic roles, may perhaps feel they've kind of seen this all before and maybe were a little bit less concerned as a result of that. But I think the key point here is that we shouldn't assume that younger people are immune from concerns around the impacts of technology in the workplace on their careers. And they want support from their employers just like everybody else. Because we had such a large data set to work with, we started to look at some of the relationships between the information we got and the correlations between, for example, working patterns and overall satisfaction with employers, as well as working patterns and mental health. So the chart on the left-hand side here looks at a wide range of employer value propositions. In each case, hybrid workers indicated higher levels of satisfaction versus full-time office workers. So in short, hybrid workers in our surveys were happier than those working full-time in the office. The chart on the right-hand side here links working patterns to the responses we received around mental health. And again, what this chart effectively says is hybrid workers indicated better mental health responses too. I just want to say a few words around retention in the profession, because we did take a bit of a deeper dive looking at mobility and looking at career aspirations. So first of all, we asked questions on people's mobility aspirations, how quickly they were planning to move on from their current role on the left-hand side chart, and then over on the right, whether the intention was to move internally within their current organisation or to move externally. And you can see over half suggesting their move was going to be external to the organisation. So clearly there are retention challenges for employers, and I'll come on to talk about that a little bit more in a minute or two. But we looked at it in two ways. So first of all, from an employee point of view, maybe this is a positive story, one of having good career options. We've always been a profession of career optionality and choices. If I want to move, then I can do. But for employers, it's obviously more of a problem. And these are some really quite big numbers. And no surprise too that there is a generational angle to this. So put simply, the younger you are, the more mobile you're going to be. And again, some comparators here specifically for SMPs. So particularly on the right-hand side, you'll see that 56% of respondents in the SMP sector suggested they expected their next role to be external to their current organisations, which may suggest a retention challenge for SMPs. And then we started to try and track movement and aspirations. So put simply, on the left you can see where people are working now in terms of the current sector, and on the right you can see where they want to go to in their next move. And we've highlighted there the talent flow to SMPs on the right-hand side of this visual. Quite clearly, the data suggests again that there are challenges here for smaller accounting firms in holding on to their people. Just one final comment, I think, on retention. So the data that we got does present a strong correlation between levels of employee dissatisfaction and then retention challenges. Probably not a great surprise, but I think really quite important that we saw such strong evidence in this area. So this visual tells us two things. First of all, unhappy workers in our survey were more likely to want to leave. And there are a number of reasons for this. Poor career development opportunities, concerns around remuneration, poor employee recognition, and lack of well-being support. So there's kind of a golden thread there of issues that I think as employers we really can focus upon if we want to hold on to the people that we wish to hold on to. And last of all, I'm just going to say a few words back on attraction to the profession. And here, drawing on the talent trends research, I think there's possibly a more positive story for us to tell. It emerges here around the attraction of a career in accountancy, which continues to give people career optionality, long-term career rewards, opportunities to acquire new skills, opportunities to acquire a qualification that gives portability across different sectors and across different countries. And this is consistent to the survey that Asma talked about earlier on that we carried out with IFAC a couple of years ago with our Gen Z respondents. And I think also what's interesting here, and maybe a little bit more surprising, is when you try to unpick what are the issues that are really important to accountants, such as impact, purpose as a likely priority in choosing a career in accountancy. And here it tracked a little bit lower than we expected, which came as a little bit of a surprise within the Gen C cadre. And our conclusion there is we think it may be a broader reflection of some of the challenges that younger people are facing in the global economy at the moment, the cost of living crisis and the impact that has on their relative priorities. And I think maybe gives us pause for reflection about how we message the attractiveness of the profession. So it begs the question, are Gen Z quite as different as we've thought? And our data, from this survey at least, would seem to indicate that there are perhaps fewer differences and their needs are less different than we thought. There's real broad consistency as to what attracts individuals to a career in accountancy. The longer term attractive features of career development, financial reward and security seem still to prevail. So that brings me to the end of my introductory remarks, ladies and gentlemen. I'm conscious that I've really skated quite quickly over the surface of a lot of the findings of ACCA's research, but hopefully it's prompted some thinking and some reflections that we can pick up later on in the Q&A and the discussion. If you want to do a more detailed deep dive, please do go to the ACCA website where you can find details of all the research we've carried out. And you can also download the app that's referred to on the slide, the ACCA Insights, where again you can access all of our research work. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Mike. I think we will continue with the second presentation until our audience will have any question prepared.
Okay, thank you. The reason I'm here presenting is not that I'm a policy expert. The reason is that I wrote an article. I was in India at the World Conference, World Congress of Accountants. And then Salvador was calling me and said, okay, I want you to present something at the meeting here. I said, okay, I cannot do it because I'm not a policy expert. It's no problem, he said. It's no problem. I said, okay, but I don't have the scientific base from Mike, so I just have a personal view. He said, no problem. I said, okay, I will do so. Maybe it's a presentation. You say, okay, well, I would have expected something better. You can blame Salvador. But what I'm going to do is, I speak from my personal experience. I will not confine my presentation to the SMPs. It's about the role of accountants in the world. I will do this from a European perspective, because this is a European organization. And it's a quite general, but very personal view. That's it. So who's this? This is my daughter, Eline. She is 30 years, and she used to work for a couple of years at the Dutch Scale Lab, which was called Ordem. She liked it, but there were some obstacles because she had to work quite hard. She had a lot of freedom, but she had to find out everything for herself. So what she did is she moved to Deloitte, where she is a consultant now. And I talked to her, I said, okay, well, do you like it? She's working there for a year. I said, yeah, I like it. It's a better payment. It's good coaching. I learn a lot. But I said, what? I said, well, there's only one thing which is hindering me, and that's the bureaucracy, the hierarchy. So I'm responsible for what I can be responsible for what I'm producing, but there are lots of people looking over my shoulders whether I do it wrong or right or wrong. So she said, maybe I don't stay there. This is just one person, so it doesn't say anything, but it's an interesting point of view. Because I recognized it in a research we did in the Netherlands very recently. It has not been published at the moment. Because what we did is we did a research among all our members, and the response was high. About 2,000 members responded about the current values and the desired values. So are they happy in their firm where they work, and what should be better? And we're not talking about the salaries, but we are talking about the pressure day to day, the challenges, the stress, but also the development possibilities and their surrounding. Are those the right values? We were also looking for the energy drains. I come back to the values by the end of at the end of the presentation. But first, the energy drains. What do you think was the major energy drain, especially at the younger generation, but not restricted to the younger generation? That was this one, regulatory burden. And regulatory burden is not about the legislation, it's mainly about the way the firms and the firms work, because there's a lot of administration which people think it's not necessary to fulfill their jobs. So this is a reason that people leave the profession. The main reason we found in the Netherlands. On the opposite of energy this energy drain, there is the ambition for professionality, for autonomy, responsibility. So people want to grow and want to be responsible for their own growth. This is typically something for professionals. And you can see that in the different countries, this works differently. This is not everywhere the same. So there is a general ambition for growth, personal growth, development, professional development. I come back to India, because in November there was this World Conference, about 6,000 people. I think about 4,000, 4,500 were from India. And what was striking was the very, very positive mood, much more positive and optimistic than in Europe, in the Netherlands. This was really striking. People thought they had a bright future. And you could see all this optimism throughout the conference. People were quite enthusiastic, energetic. There was a lot of energy. So this was striking to me. And you could see the difference where the Europeans or the Americans were presenting or the Indians were presenting. Also, the subjects were different. And there is something behind, and this is something has to do with demographics, what drives this energy. And it's the perspective on prosperity. People want to grow and want to be happy and are driving for prosperity. And what you can see is that if you come from, let's say, poverty, a poor country, then there is more perspective to grow than if you are from a rich country. And there's another thing, which is age. And you can see it here, because Nigeria is a little bit of the same country. I talk to people living in Lagos. Lagos it's terrible. It's a hell. It's about 20 million people, a lot of pollution. But you see people dancing on the streets, people are rather happy. The average age is 18. The average age in India is 28. The average age in the Netherlands is 42. And that's a difference. It's a difference between being among elder people or with a mixed generation, with a lot of young people. It's reflected in the GDP, the growth, the economic growth. And you can see here that in Nigeria, the forecast is a growth of 3.2 next year. India 5.4, and the Netherlands 0.7, and the latest prospects are negative. What is driving this growth? It's the population mainly. The population growth is a major factor in growth. And what you see here are the growth perspective in the world until the end of the century. And it's interesting. You can see below that there is Europe, there is Western Asia, also Northern Africa, Latin America, Australia. Up, Eastern and Southeastern Asia, Central and Southern Asia, and the rest of Africa, Central and South Africa, it's sky high. And this means that there are major changes in demographics in the coming decades. And this has consequences for Europe. And a major consequence is a declining economic power. If you look at let's say the global market share, market division of GDP, you can see that Europe at the moment has 22% of the volume. In 30 years, it will decrease to 12%. 12% of global GDP. So this tells something about the perspective, about the economic perspective. But there are also reasons for optimism in Europe, because if you see, Europe is a major breeding ground of innovation. So if you look at the most innovative countries, there are 5 or 6 European countries in the top 10, which means that, for instance, for younger people, there is another perspective, maybe not prosperity, but innovation, learning a lot. There is something else, and this is especially for Europe, it's for the world, but also for Europe. If you look at prosperity and the perspectives, for instance, for Africa or for India, there is a price to pay, and the price is the natural environment. If you look at the global risk, and this has been a report which was made by a couple of thousand risk experts, and it was done by the World Economic Forum. You see that if you look at the top 10 global risks, about 6 of them are environmental risk, which will grow to, and there are in 10 years, the top 4. So you can see the pressure of the environmental pressure being reflected in the risks. So this is the downside effect of prosperity. And what will be the effect? For instance, price, inflation. What you see here is the price left, the graphics left, is the share which of the food in the spendings of a family. So in the 1960s, people paid 18% of their total spendings was food. Last years, it was diminished to 10, and I will tell you about 50 or 60 years ago, it might have been 40% or something like that. The right hand, you see, it's called the Christmas Dinner Index. It's from the UK. And this is the price of the Christmas dinner the last couple of years, the last 3 years. So you see what's happening. It has become very expensive. I don't say that this is, let's say, this is just an indication. I don't say that this is caused by sustainability issues. But what you see is if there's an energy crisis and a food crisis, prices will go up, not go down. So what you can see is that because of those environmental pressures, that the prices and the income will, the perspective on growth will be worse. And this about legislation. These are the current and expected legislations from the European Union in the area of sustainability. So the legislative burden, so to say, will increase. So this is the prospects. And you can't do anything about this. This is what's going to happen in Europe. Then there is another major limit to growth, and that's polarization. This is more about politics. And what you can see, that's another limit to prosperity. It will be subordinate to security. Security is more important than prosperity. And we will see also another thing is the rise of a multipolar world. And this affects the profession also. Because we always say we are a global profession, and IFAC is responsible all the professional bodies, all the accountants in the world. But what you see are some changes. Those are quite very recent articles from the Financial Times and some other media. And what you see is that there are some issues with China, the stock exchange in New York. There are issues with Russia. And you see the firms are leaving Russia. So this is something which is happening now, and I guess it will not stop. And what you see here is, again, it reflects the rise of the multipolar world. So on the top end, you see the red are the countries with an autocratic regime. And at the end, left, you see the members of IFAC. And one effect might be an effect on the standard setting, and little attention have been paid until now. So I counted the standard setting boards, the members of the standard setting boards of IFAC and the IFAC board. And it's interesting to see that at board level, IFAC is quite well representative, most countries in the world, democratic or non-democratic. But if you look at the IWSB, there are no representatives of non-democratic countries. So are they applying those standards? Are they compliant to those standards? You can ask it. But this is something you have to take care. Another thing is the Edelman Trust Barometer, because I just explained the polarity between countries, but also within countries, you can see polarization. This is the Edelman Trust Barometer. And Edelman might be familiar to IFAC because they work with them. They measure since 2000 the public trust in the world. And they ask about 20,000 people. Every year they pose the same questions. And what you can see here is also the polarization in countries. And here are also some European countries, which is a problem. And what's happening is, as a result of this, people are very, very concerned. And you see that the economic optimism is collapsing in Europe, but also in other countries. The question here was asked, was my family and I will be better off in 5 years? And it's going down in every country. There's another side to this, because this makes you very pessimistic. But if you look at the happiest countries in the world, this is the happiness index, then you see that Europe, a lot of European countries, are still in the top 10. And what is measured here is not just whether people are happy or not. People are happy if they live in a clean environment, have good entrance to good education, when there is no corruption, freedom of choice, life expectancy, health, etc., etc. This is reflected in this graph. So there are some things to defend in the Western world. I come back to the Edelman Trust Barometer, because this graph shows the trust in the different institutions in the world. And what you can see is the trust in governments all over the world is all-time low. There was one exception, which was China. That is all-time low. Media, the same. Business and NGOs, there is a general expectation that they can change the world, and they are trusted that they do the right thing. And I consider the profession and also the profession bodies in that area, in the area of NGOs and business. So you could say that professional bodies and accountants play a key role in maintaining public trust. And I think more than we should think. So this is what I think is very, very important for the profession. Of course, we have to contribute to growth. Of course, we have to contribute to the stability of companies and organizations. But we are also a guardian of public trust. And our values are very much associated with a democratic world. I think there is no alternative. And this is something we should foster. I come back, this is my last slide, to the conclusion. And this is a positive conclusion. What you see is, and I come back to ACCA, the last slide of Mike, the fundamentals remain, which I think is a quite positive message. Our culture research in the Netherlands showed that the firms do well. Work-life balance, it's fairly good. They have done a lot last years, but it's possible. And they are very productive even when people just work a normal working day. So it's possible, it's possible. Payment levels also quite well. But here was the gap. You see, there are 3 areas where people said, okay, well, the profession has to do better, and we expect this. And those are their values, this is social responsibility, ethics, and integrity. So again, this comes back to the fundamental values, with one addition, that's social responsibility. And this fits perfectly well in the things we have to do in the coming decade. So, of course, I think we have to do the right thing for the young professionals, not just for the young, because we have also to keep the old professions. People should not go retire when they are 55 or 60, because they can do a very good job, even if they are older. But the main thing is, what kind of profession do we offer them? What kind of contribution are we making for society? I think that's the main question. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Barry. It was very interesting presentation, and I think we should all thank Salvador for insisting to have you here, because this was very different presentation. I mean, and very different point of view that we got from today. So I would like this session to be very interactive, also with the audience here, or maybe I heard that is also online if we have any questions. But let me start first with one question just to open the discussion. We have heard both our panelists. They gave us insights and from the questionnaire or the information that you got from the young ones and SMPs. And also from Barry, we just had this wonderful presentation and from his experience. So what about, as it was divided actually, the China, you had very different feedback, and also Europe have a different feedback. Let me ask you, because for years there has been a talk, at least in Europe, about war for talent. And it's not just about finding the right talent, but it's also how to keep the talent you have. Has this war for talent intensified? If so, how and why?
Perhaps I'll come in first and then I'll pass across to you, Barry. I think it has intensified. I think it's probably the most intense that I can recall it. And if you look at all the data about the kind of the labour shortages that we're seeing not only across Europe but elsewhere, I think it probably is at its most prominent level. There's a whole range of economic reasons for that. I also think there are a whole range of, I guess, other career options open to people who we would want to be attracting into the accountancy profession. So it feels like perhaps the most competitive moment that we've been in as a profession. I guess what I'd say, though, also is I'd like to strike quite an optimistic tone in this debate as well, because I think we've got a great deal that we can present in terms of the opportunities that an accountancy career offers. And I think some of the points that Barry was making there really, really resonate in terms of sitting at the heart of building trust again in some of the fundamentals of society. And I think the accountancy profession with our ethical grounding kind of sits at the heart of that. And if you look at a lot of the messaging that we do at ACCA around the profession, it is really trying to emphasize that positive impact that the profession can make. And the sustainability agenda is the latest element of that, and I think provides a massive opportunity, again, for professional accountants with the skills that we provide them with to make a real difference. And I think we should all be kind of working at getting that message across as best we can.
Yeah, I agree. I agree to Mike with Mike. There is another thing. I think it's true. I think it's the most competitive moment maybe in the history of the profession. But there are restrictions to that. There are certain borders. And why is that? Because there are also other professions who are doing the same thing. So if you all have a very large effort for the same group, it remains the same. But so I think there's another thing, and this is something we've seen in the Netherlands. We lose a lot of people in the education. So in the primary education, in the secondary education. So what we have seen is that about 50% of the people during the education leave their study. They're going to do something else. So that's one thing. We have to reform education. We are doing that now in the Netherlands. And the other thing is people are leaving the profession because of the regulatory burden. So we waste a lot of people. And I think here's here is the area where we can benefit. If we take care for the people and we care for them.
Do you think that is maybe a problem that we don't know how to promote? How to offer to them?
I don't think so. I don't think so. We have. I think in the Netherlands, and you can hire agencies and like everybody, we do it ourselves also. So we have hundreds of professional accountants. They are visiting schools. They have a good story to tell, and it's interesting. It's not boring anymore. So and we have competitions with students, etc., etc., etc. But other parties do the same. So I don't think it's a matter of promotion. It's a matter of telling the right story to the right people and keeping them.
So any question from the audience? Any insights? Any experiences? Yes? I do believe in interaction, so...
Thank you to both speakers for the excellent presentation. I will speak as a practicing accountant. Barry, you mentioned, or your penultimate slide pointed out that the profession is regarded as the guardian of public interest. I would like to link that with the regulatory burden that you earlier mentioned. I don't think there is any colleague in the audience that would disagree that indeed we do have a regulatory burden. However, how would we convince young generation to enter the profession with all the scandals that we hear day in, day out, if the regulatory burden was reduced? The result would be less reduction in the idea that the profession is the guardian of public interest. Personally, I think that regarding the regulatory burden, we should not, as professionals, ask to reduce the burden. We don't like it, but we should not ask. We should design systems to train newcomers to comply with regulation. Thank you.
Yes?
Yes, please.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think, again, I'm talking from a Netherlands perspective. We added a lot of regulation to maintain and to improve quality, the quality of assurance and the quality of our services. And it worked. It worked well. So the confidence of the audience, of the public, was higher. Is higher now than a couple of years ago. The regulator is quite satisfied. So this is working. But now, coming back to the regulatory burden, there are two types of regulatory burden. One is the one we are now talking, the legislator, society, maybe IFAC, the standard setting bodies. The other one is the burden firms, organizations create themselves. We have done investigations in the Netherlands also, for instance in the health sector. And about 60% of the burdens were caused by the hospitals themselves, because they have all kind of protocols and et cetera, which are not really necessary. So we are causing a lot of burden ourselves, and we can do something about that.
Thank you.
If I could just come in with a very quick comment, and I should declare that I did spend part of my career as a regulator, so I kind of understand that perspective. And I think it's important not to place all the blame on regulation. As you say, we are a public interest profession, and it's important that that trust is grounded in a system that gives some assurance over quality. And when the big scandals happen, that's because something has gone terribly wrong. And I think we need to learn from that. But my observation would be, and this is not just in the UK, it's around the world, regulators need to strike the right balance between finding things that have gone wrong, but also highlighting things that have gone well. And there's very little, frankly, that really still comes out that provides that kind of support to the profession and says, well, actually, in these areas, they're doing extremely well. I think there's a balance to be struck in a regulatory approach.
Thank you. So, we have another question.
Hi. Everyone, my name is Ciprian Mihailescu. I'm from Romanian Chamber of Financial Auditors, and the question will be for Barry. Very interesting presentation. You mentioned the risk of, let's say, multipolarization of the world, and I think that this risk could also increase the regulatory burden. And how do you think we can what we can do as a professional bodies to keep the profession as a global one, and because even within the same jurisdictions where we that are aligned with this, let's say, view that we should have common standards, there are different initiatives like European ESRS for the CSRD, like GRI standards, like ISSB standards, and there will be a risk for increasing the regulatory burden in the future if this standard will overlap in different, let's say, requirements, and we will have to work harder as firms to know different jurisdictions' requirements and regulations and so whatsoever. Thank you.
Barry, I know that is not in topic now. We are going to the regulation part. Maybe this, but yes, if you can.
It's about the first. I respond to your first question. How can we, let's say, avoid or prevent, let's say, an increase of multipolarity of a polarized world? I think that's happening here and in IFAC. So what you should do is communicate, invite countries, discuss with countries. I was in India. This was the reason that this was cast. And I wrote this article, and what I noticed is that some representatives of, for instance, the Council Europe was not represented there. And they had good reasons for that. I don't go into that. But they should have been there. Not because the program was not interesting or whatever, just to have contact with the people, to communicate, to be there. And I think this is something we should do. We should not exclude countries or professional bodies where we think they are not belonging to our value system. Sorry, it's not about talent.
Yeah, if we can go back to next question maybe and go back to our theme today. The conference theme is attracting, retaining and upskilling talent. Which aspect of attracting, retain, upskill is the most acute and why? What are the implications of this for the profession and its leadership?
I'll start by saying
a
few words. I mean, and it very much gets into the territory that I was covering in the presentation. I think the answer is all three are really important. I don't think you should look at one at the exclusion of the other. I do think, and we heard right at the outset today, the point that there isn't a one-size-fits-all solution to all of this. It will depend on the country that you're working in, the kind of the regulatory environment. I do think, let me say something about what professional accountancy organisations can do about this. I think there's a really important role, if I think from an ACCA perspective, about how we evolve our qualification, because the skills required of a professional accountant now and in the future are continuing to change, and therefore we need to continue to evolve what the qualification looks like to make sure it's giving the skills around sustainability, around technology, whatever it may be, that the accountant of the future is going to need. So I think it's really important we focus on that. And I think we also need to look at actually how straightforward it is to actually gain a qualification. I think the comments about technicians were really important, first of all, today, and the different routes to gaining the skills that you need. We should be really flexible and innovative about that. I know that ACCA is looking at that at the moment. I'm sure other PAOs are doing the same.
I agree.
So I would just like to continue because on both presentations we have seen that work-life balance it is important, and for the Generation Z and the youngest one. So how, your personal view, how important is this for attracting and retaining talent? And does the accountancy profession offers this? We have heard from Barry that it started in Netherlands, but from the presentation of ACCA there was somewhere there, I think. Can you give us some your personal insights? What do you think about?
I think there's a lot more that we can do, and I do think that we can be really flexible in addressing the needs that were coming out of the survey that we carried out. I don't think we should be kind of hidebound by the past. I don't think we should be thinking about how things used to be. We should be looking forward and adjusting and be flexible. I do, though, think it's important that on work-life balance, there are two elements to that, and one element of that is work, and we need to be clear and honest with people joining the profession that there will be times when they will need to work quite hard. It's not a one-way street, it's a two-way street.
That period of time.
So I think we need to be straight and honest, but I think we can really adjust the way in which we organise ourselves, be flexible to people's circumstances, and in so doing, make accountancy an area where people want to come and join.
I can add something. We had this issue. It's a huge issue. And what happened 4 years ago, we have a very engaged and active young professional community. And what they did is they started a research. They worked together with a university. And then there was a report which showed that there was a lot of work pressure and people, especially young people, were not satisfied. But what they did is they threw it in the public debate. And the firms were not happy because they said, well, you should not do this, you should talk this with us. But the effect was, it was in the papers, in newspapers, it was everywhere, that it forced them to work. And now we can see that it has resulted, because in the top 20 of issues, work-life balance is not anymore there. Long working days is not there anymore. So it is possible, it helped, and it is possible.
Any change? Any question from the audience? Any insights, best practices? Okay. Yes. I think we're on time.
Good morning, everyone. First of all, thanks for your beautiful presentations that helped us to think about certain points. I manage a company, a small company, accountability company based on the countryside of the country. So we have about 40 workers, 40 professionals, and about these 40 people, we have about 95% of high education level, and then the rest are kind of medium education. The average of age is 25, so we have a very, very young team. Of course, that we have some of us that are older, that raise here some years. But the difficulty has been in the last years to retain the profiles that were with us about 5-7 years. So it's not, the problem is not to hunt the talents, it's not to identify the talents, we can bring them to our home, but then it's to retain. Because I think that we are seen, accountability companies, as a stage to something bigger. We are kind of the preparation to the Californian dreams of the accountants, that is to work with in a company, in an industry, as a financial, as a director, as a manager. So we prepare them very well, and then they go and take their wins with them. The question is that I speak as a director of our company. We don't have the structure to create different opportunities, career opportunities, so they can grow and grow and grow. So we can, of course, provide a career as an accountant trainee, then first, second, a senior accountant, but nothing from them. We cannot having all of the people managing. So the thing is, as our personal experience, what we did was to rethink the way that we should deliver the service to the customer. As I think that we have many colleagues with this problem or opportunity, our customers sometimes or most of the times don't have a big structure. They don't have administrative services, they don't have back office support, and then they see in the accountant that service, right? And then our accountants are overwhelmed with so many solicitations and demands from our customer that something are not accountability tasks. There are accessory tasks. So what we did was to try to build a team to provide that particular type of services. We call them as a kind of administrative services. And then what this means is that our accountability team is focused on delivery where they make the difference. And they feel a little bit more enthusiastic about their work. They focus more on the real tasks that they were prepared for. And that's how we are being deconstructing this path of letting the profession, because I think they are not letting, they don't want to leave the profession of accountability. They don't want to handle with certain type of matters that are requested to accountants. That most of the times we don't have to produce that tasks. We can of course do that. We have the capacities, but it can be done by lower profiles. That one day can be also higher profiles. We don't discuss that. But as a personal experience, what I wanted to share was that one thing that we think that is making some difference is try to focus the team on more significant tasks. Okay? That was just my way of share. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your insights. Any other personal experience? Because it's a very interesting topic, actually. In different countries, we have different experience. Like we didn't do research in Kosovo, but when I asked some young ones, what will attract you to stay in accounting profession, they were telling me flexibility and higher salaries. It was on the presentation that it's not about salaries. I think in the end of the day, it is about salary. So, any other question or experience? Let's be interactive, because we can open lots of good discussion that we can work after that as a EFAA and IPAC and professional bodies.
Hi, my name is Martin de Bie. I'm chair of the Digital Working Group of the EFAA, and a question for Mike. Yesterday I had a conversation with the Friends members regarding technology and the impact of e-invoicing, because as an accountant, as small, medium-priced practices, you are doing a broad way of work. You do the administration, or you have a team administration, but you do a lot of work and a lot of pressure in a short of time. And what I'm looking at is what should be the impact. We are now looking now, but what should the impact be? Like in 2024, in July, I think, to the Friends, the e-invoicing will be mandatory for business to business. If you automate it, because it's very strange, we make an invoice which come out on a computer system and we do it like a digital PDF, and then somebody's looking at the PDF, translate it again to an entry, and then it goes into the system, and then it has to be checked. So there's a lot of work being done. And I think after 2024, a lot of can be changed because the technology is there to automate, even on tax purpose, to see, okay, this invoice, and it will also impact the work of small, medium practices. Are you also investigating this kind of trends or possible trends? What could help us as industry, but also we have to change maybe our way of working.
Yeah. Thank you. It's a really interesting perspective and interesting development. We actually, at the moment, that kind of specific example isn't one that we've looked at, but I might come and have a chat with you a bit later to find out a bit more about it, because it sounds like a really practical issue that our members are going to be dealing with wherever they are, but surely in Europe too. So that's not something we've looked at. We do have some work happening more broadly on technology, but I'd like to learn more about that. So let's talk some more.
Thank you. Any other comments? Okay, I think. Thank you very much, Barry and Mike. Thank you to all of you. It is a very interesting topic. I have tried to do some conclusion, and I think by addressing the acute aspects of attracting, retaining, and upskilling talent, we can shape the future of our profession. Is it? Okay, I can speak from here. It's always technology, something. So I'm not good on this, definitely. So by addressing the acute aspects of attracting, retaining, and upskilling talent, we can shape the future of our profession and ensure its continued relevance and success. It is also important to offer flexible work arrangements and remote work options to emphasize the potential for career growth, advancement opportunities. But we can and we must adapt by highlighting the role of accountants in ensuring financial transparency, integrity, and ethical practices, and by promoting the importance of sustainability, corporate social responsibility, and the potential for accountants to drive positive change through their work. By demonstrating how our profession contributes to the society and addresses global challenges, we can engage and inspire young talents. Thank you once again to all of you.
I'm going to be giving you gifts.
So we have presents?
Yes, you do, yeah. You don't have to share either. You keep them to yourself. Yeah, I'd just like to thank Adriana, Mike and Barry for a great session. You know, we are obviously faced with a lot of challenges, but I think we did hear some very positive noises from all three of our panelists today. It was especially encouraging to hear from Barry that there's life beyond our late 50s. So that's encouraging, given that I'm 57 now.
So for him, 2 presents.
Ooh, yeah. Well, I will say if I got one spare. Yeah, so I'd just like to give a little gift to each of our presenters, starting with Adriana. Thanks so much for being a great moderator with us today.
For inviting
Or
us.
the chairperson for the session. Barry, please. You're welcome.
And the best part is Coffee Baby.
Yeah. We now have a lunch break. I understand that the catering is running a couple of minutes late, so the food may not be outside as soon as you step out. So please, there might be coffee. Visit the bathrooms, the washrooms, whatever first. We understand that the catering will be here in about sort of 5 or 10 minutes. So enjoy your lunch break. We'll reconvene back in this room at 1:15. At 1:15, 1:15, we'll be back here. Thanks very much for being a great audience.